This week, you are going to be reading and learning about the American Revolution and also Chapter 7, which talks about forging a new nation. So there's so many cool things going on in these two chapters. That's the history nerd coming out in me. One thing you will notice, there is not going to be a lot about the military history of the revolution. Sorry if you're really into like battles and strategy and like the military point of view, this is not the class. One, this is just a survey class of American history. And two, this is not the right professor. I don't really tend to hone in on those things because I'm just not a military historian. But I'll try to add a couple of videos, especially from Crash Course. I know with the Civil War, they do battles and a little bit of military history. But really, what I look at is like the ideological aspects of the revolution. And so that's also kind of what the book covers too. Here's some learning objectives. I don't know if you've been paying attention to these at the beginning of the book, but this is a really good thing to kind of look at. It also kind of aligns with the course competencies for this. But what you're going to be looking at is and learning about, it's really the different points of view from different groups of people. So in this, you're going to understand the choices of the colonists, American Indians, and African Americans. Also, the role that women played during the Revolution. And along with that, you're going to learn about why African Americans sometimes chose to fight for the British side. That meant winning freedom or earning their freedom if they fought for the British. And so that's why you have a lot of African Americans who turned to the British to fight for them during the American Revolution. If you're really into the American Revolution, I suggest watching Turn, Washington Spies. It was a series that came out on AMC. I believe you can watch it on Netflix, but if you haven't seen that series, it is so good. And it gives you the viewpoint of men, women, African Americans. It's just a great series to watch. Also, it's going to talk about governing during the Revolution and how our forefathers, or the founding fathers, if you will, why they chose the Articles of Confederation to use as a kind of the rule of the land, if you will. It's not a very good framework of government, and they're going to realize that very quickly at the end of the war. And so that's what chapter 7 covers more of, is how do we go from the Articles of Confederation to the US Constitution. And that's why I added those John Green videos. I think it will give you a good idea of kind of the shift from going into a more structured, more detailed US Constitution that we will eventually adopt in the late 1700s. One thing also to kind of keep in mind is just because we declare independence in 1776 does not mean that we're automatically independent. And I always tell students that, like, imagine me, like, okay, I'm declaring that I'm president of the United States. That doesn't mean anything. I actually have to become president of the United States for that to actually make a difference. So just because we say, hey, we're an independent nation, that doesn't mean anything. We're going to have to fight for a very long time, go through a series of meetings and eventually sign this treaty, and then prove that we are a nation even after we are recognized as independent in 1783. And that's what chapter 7 is all about, is creating this American identity, creating political parties, although George Washington warned against political parties, and creating a nation that is worth something, that we can actually say, yes, we are an independent nation. Here's how powerful we are, although we are a very, very weak nation. Until around the early 1800s, we will kind of set ourselves apart. So there's a lot of interesting and fascinating things in chapter 6 and 7. And here's just kind of on the side for you. One thing I do want to point out about what you're going to have due this week is the next exam, exam 2. It's only covering 2 chapters on exam 2, chapter 6 and chapter 7, just because there's I mean, there's a ton of information in chapters 1, 2, 3, and 5, as you notice, but chapters 6 and 7, that's just a really good breaking point for us in the book, if you will, because we're talking about the revolution and then what happens immediately after the revolution. And a lot of revolutionary rhetoric is involved in chapter 7. So you're only responsible for those 2 chapters on exam 2. As always, even with exam 1, let me scroll back up here so you can see it. Exam 1. Oh, it's not showing up. But I did include the ebook. You can use that on the exam if you want to. Let me refresh and see if it pops up. Yeah, it did. Okay, so there it is. You can use the ebook on the exam if you would like to. Remember that it is a timed exam and it's random questions from so make sure you have the ebook and make sure that you are ready to take the exam when you sit for it. As always, if you have any questions, use this little inbox feature over here. And good luck this week. And I will hopefully have another video for you next week.